one of the people who views these videos, my vlogging, my kitchen vlog videos, saw my last one where I talked about some clients that I worked with when I was studying psychotherapy. And just to mention something, I was never a professional. I never got licensed as a MFT, a marriage and family therapist. I didn't want to. I was doing this considering the prospects, also trying to further myself in my real job at a university, which didn't work out, but that's okay. And somebody had talked me into getting a master's degree. It cost me about $50,000 by the time I was done. If I had that money all over again, I wouldn't have spent it on the master's degree. But I did enjoy some of what I did. Those two clients that I talked about in my previous video, those were examples of clients that I really enjoyed working with. But some of them, in trying to talk about some of these people, sometimes it's difficult to talk about them. For example, the guy that worked for his father, I mentioned him last time, left, came back, left, came back. Just using the expression that he was returning home to his father, hoping to be celebrated home. That's a painful expression for me. That the expression, I use the expression celebrating home. It's from that Kenny Loggins song. Please celebrate me home. Give me a number. Different context entirely, but it's a difficult subject. If you've read the book by Steinbeck, East of Eden, or saw the movie with Joe Van Fleet and James Dean, in the scene where he's talking to his mother in her office and she's telling him some of her background, you want to watch the person who's speaking. Van Fleet is speaking in that scene. Don't watch her. Watch James Dean. Watch how he responds to the things that she says. You watch a lot of actors when they're on screen and somebody else is doing the talking. They just sit there. Dull, a lot of them. They don't know how to listen. Dean listened to everything that she said, and everything meant something to him. My favorite line in that scene, and I've clicked the rewind button again and again and again and again, just watching him say that one line again and again and again. No, I don't like the ranch. No, I don't like the ranch. I love that line. And I don't know what it is about that line, but just the way he says that. I don't like the ranch. There's just so much in that line, but it's like almost buried. I want to know what's there. But anyways, that's a story of someone so trying so hard to gain his father's love, basically. And how painful it was for him that he kept failing to get his father's approval, to get his father's love. That was that guy I was working with. It's a painful experience. And some of those experiences they're not fun to talk about. Like my very first client, middle-aged woman, mother of 3, came in. She presented, we called it presented. This was the presenting issue. Oftentimes there's something more behind it. But she came in, she was concerned about the welfare of her mother because her brother, who was an alcoholic, was living with the mother and he was driving her to her doctor's appointments. And so this woman was concerned about her mother being driven by a guy who's under the influence of alcohol and so forth. Well, there was more to it than that. I think once she felt she could trust me, then she started talking about some underlying issues. He, when she was a child, sexually abused her. It wasn't rape, but he was, shall we say, curious about female plumbing, and he explored it on her body. And she was too young to know what to do about it. When she got older, she finally put a stop to it. She found her strength, and she could basically say to him, if you ever touch me like that again, I will claw your eyes out. Something to that effect. And that's what stopped it. But she was conflicted for a couple of reasons. One, she's got her own children, 2 boys and a daughter. And the daughter is the young one, the small one, and therefore the vulnerable one. So she's watching her sons like a hawk to make sure it won't happen to them. And then she could talk to her mother about what was going on. And the mother was in denial about, oh, that's nothing. Boys are just curious. It's perfectly normal. Nothing to think about. Her mother wouldn't confront it. So this woman didn't know how to feel about it. And she said, sometimes I feel guilty. Like maybe it is normal and I feel the wrong way about it. Maybe it's me. And I said, no. All I said to her was, no one has the right to touch your body in a way you don't want them to. She burst into tears. Just burst into tears. What do? You got this person who's just literally crumbling into tears in front of you. You don't do anything. You just wait. She's purging. She's that catharsis. She's getting this stuff out, and she'll eventually talk about, again, this boxes of tissue all over the office. The agency would buy them by the case, these boxes of tissue, and you let her cry it out. Best thing for her. When someone's crying, don't say to them, oh, don't cry, don't cry. Let them cry. If it's someone that's close to you and you have some affection with, put your arm around them, or just hold their hand or something, but let them cry it out. Best thing for them. And what she said when she cried it all out, she said to me, I've been waiting all my life to hear someone confirm what I thought was true. That was rough. I wanted to cry, and just talking about it, I can feel the tears in the back of my eye. I have to be careful. So, because some of these people, their pain is so great, and they share it with you, and it can be tough to bear sometimes. I had a young man come into the office, college student, and had quit school because of his problem. And he came in and said, can I talk to somebody? You could just see the distress. I mean, he didn't look like he was on the verge of committing suicide, but you could see the distress. And I said to him, yeah, come on in. And we sat down, and all I said to him was, you are really hurting deep down inside. Boom. Again, burst into tears. What had happened was he had a girlfriend, his first love of his life in college. He's in a relationship. They're sleeping together. Life is wonderful because of her, but she's not perfect. And turned out that she was cheating on him with his best friend, who of course was not saying anything. All of their mutual friends knew what was going on, but no one was telling him anything. So in one fell swoop, he lost his girlfriend, the love of his life. He lost his best friend. He lost all of his support group, all of his friends. He was so distressed, he quit school, and sought out help. And we worked together. And it was rough sometimes because in him, you get them talking. You try not to do much talking. You ask questions that will let them talk. You avoid yes-no questions. Was she really important to you? That's a yes-no question. How important was she to you? See, that gets them talking. Open-ended questions. Well, it turned out that all of the warning signs were there. She had let him know early on that she wasn't the type of person to be faithful, that she liked to play around, she liked to sleep around. But he was so in love with her, and he so wanted her to be perfect, the ideal everything that he wanted, that he ignored the signs of potential danger and just focused on the ones that fulfilled his needs for her, what he wanted her to be. And once he started talking and realized what was going on, then he was able to say, yeah, a lot of it was my fault. I should have paid more attention, and I realized I was being too naive, too gullible. And once he got through all of that, it's like life's difficult experiences, and he learned from it. And he eventually emailed me afterward to say he was back at school and he was completing his degree. He had all new friends and he was fine, and thank you for helping me out. And some of these people, it's like you go to bed at night and you think, how am I going to reach this person? That guy I talked about last time, the gang member, he was a challenge because 2 other people at the agency had tried to work with him and they couldn't get through to him. He was so tough. He just wasn't going to let anyone get through to him. See, but like I talked about last time, that what got me in there finally, the link, the connection was that I guessed, but I saw that he had no tattoos, and I thought I knew the reason why, because he thought he knew he was better than the rest of his gang. And so the fact that I perceived that, I figured that out, that was what got me in there. Some of them, it's like people who, and I did have a couple of clients who were depressed. Most of the depressed ones were long term. You'd see them for months. Most of my clients were 4 to 6 visits. I had one client, one visit. She came in for one visit. And basically all she needed was for someone to say, it's okay for you to move out of this town if you have no friends here. Move where you do have friends. Where do your friends live? It's okay for you to move. Because she was renting a room in a house with an older woman who didn't want to be alone, didn't want to be lonely. And the woman was basically using this younger woman for companionship, but the younger woman didn't want to be the companion. But she didn't want to abandon the old woman. But it's okay if she's not happy in this town. She wants to be somewhere else. So that was a one visit client. After that, she called after that, and she said, I won't be coming in next week because I won't be in town. I'm moving. So she got it. So some of them were difficult, and they weren't fun for me. And that was the reason why I didn't go on to get my master's degree, because I got my master's degree. Why I didn't go on to get my license, because some of them, like they joked about it in the agency. Dennis has a couple from hell because they would come in. I was doing couples therapy. They would come in and yell at each other, and you can't really stop them. You let them talk, basically yell, but then you find a way to say, okay, you've got it out of your system now. How can you say the same thing to him or to her without yelling? Because you notice what happens when you yell. The other person gets defensive, and then they start yelling, and before you know it, it's a competition of who can yell the loudest. Say the same thing, what you just told me, but tell them. But don't yell. Say it calmly, so that they won't get defensive, and then they'll talk calmly, and you'll basically, it's teaching them how to communicate with each other. And they're kind of fun to watch when you do some of these couples, because they come in and they sit at opposite ends of the sofa, and they're just, this is what he does. Yeah, well, this is what she does. And you get them. But after they learn how to communicate and tell each other what their wants are, how they feel about each other, then you watch them, and they come in, and she's sitting next to him, and she's got his arm in hers, and they're cuddling. Those are fun to watch. Those are fun. But you have to put up with the yelling. And you know that everybody in the agency can hear this couple yelling in the other room. The walls were pretty soundproof, but not 100%. So anyways, those are some of the clients. A lot of them were difficult. There was a lot of difficulty. So I got my master's degree. But I decided, even though the agency wanted me to, because I was very successful, and I was even getting referrals from my clients, which is supposedly very rare that you get referrals when you're working as a student therapist. But I was getting referrals, and they wanted me to continue. But I told them, this is just not my kind of work. I like getting the degree. I like having explored it. I've made a difference in a few people's lives, and that makes me feel good, but I just can't do this as a career. So that's the reason why I don't talk about it as much as maybe I could, but it just, not all of it was enjoyable.